I've just finished a long round of testing on Dune Awakening's Spice Prescience mechanic, and now I'm here to share my findings with you. So first, for the sake of completeness, I'll just mention that if you don't already have the Prescience mechanic unlocked, you can get it by completing the 4th Trial of Akal story quest from the Find the Fremen quest line. This also gives you your 3rd ability slot. But once you have the Prescient state unlocked, what does it actually do for you besides giving you glowing purple eyes? On activation, your health is restored to full, and then first, you get floating information above nearby players and NPCs. You can see everyone's positions through walls, and you can see how much health they have remaining. For NPCs, you can also see what type of weapon they're using and how many rounds are left in their magazine, i.e. when they're going to reload. Second, all your ability cooldowns are reduced by 50%, so you can literally perform abilities twice as often. Third, all your damage is buffed by 50%. Fourth, when you are below 1/3 health, you get a 200% buff to the speed of your auto health regeneration. Fifth, you become immune to poison. That means, for example, you can use the poison capsule or poison mine abilities from the Mentat tree and deploy them right on top of your position without taking any damage. And finally, there are a few capstone skills you can unlock in the class trees that only activate when you're prescient. The best of these, in my opinion, are Trooper's Reflexive Reload, which causes your gun to automatically get reloaded anytime you throw a grenade or deploy a mine, and Bene Gesserit's Screech, which stuns nearby enemies whenever you target an enemy with a voice ability like Compel. And when you activate Prescience, it lasts for a full 5 minutes, so you can benefit from the effects for an entire firefight or even multiple NPC mobs. Although if you trigger Prescience by accident, this might be a bad thing, as there's no way to cancel the state once you activate it. This is why some people rebind the activation key from the PC default of Z to something less likely to be triggered accidentally. Also note, if you die, reload, or change maps while in the Prescient state, the timer gets set to 1 minute. So that's what the Prescient state does. It gives you a whole bunch of buffs for 5 whole minutes. Now, how do you get into it? To build your meter, you have to deliberately expose yourself to spice. The meter does not build passively. The simplest way to build meter is just to go to the deep desert and stand in a spice field. You can go from 0 to 100% meter in as little as 70 seconds standing in a field. But if you want to be able to achieve the Prescient state anytime, anywhere, you need to consume melange spiced foods. The items you can currently eat to progress towards Prescience are melange spiced food, beer, coffee, wine, and liquor. As you can see in this chart, 1 beer fills your Prescience meter about twice as much as 1 food, and 1 melange spiced liquor fills your Prescience meter about 4 times as much as consuming 1 melange spiced food. But the crafting recipes for these foods require exponentially increasing amounts of spice sand, so the foods yielding lower progress on your Prescience meter are much more efficient to use. The main advantage of the higher yield foods is space savings, since all foods weigh the same, and slightly less time spent consuming the food, since you can only eat so many items consecutively before being forced to take a short break. But these are probably moot points. It's not very practical to build Prescience literally in the middle of combat, so normally you'll fill up before you leave base, and maybe carry another activation or two's worth of spice in your inventory to nibble at between encounters. Since you craft spice foods from spice sand, and you need spice sand for a lot of other things, you'll just be storing spice sand, not spice food. So practically speaking, the spice density and storage density of the different spice foods is probably meaningless in normal usage. The melange spice food recipe requires the least spice sand per meter awarded, so it would seemingly be the most efficient to craft, except the recipe also requires a mouse corpse, which can be a bit hard to come by, so that makes the melange spice beer the most obvious choice for crafting and consumption, though of course you can also just loot spice foods off defeated NPCs. If you've got more Solari than sense, then you can instead buy spice food from a vendor like Anna at her bar in Harko Village. Here, the melange spice food is definitely the best deal in terms of Solari spent per unit of meter. Notably though, if you are going to try and carry many activations of spice food into battle, then buying melange spice liquor is the way to go. It's cheaper to buy liquor than to craft it. But again, the most efficient thing to do will generally be to craft your own spiced beer. And now finally we'll talk about the mysterious and scary sounding withdrawal and tolerance mechanics. So, when your 5 minutes of Prescience ends, you enter a withdrawal state. This period is indicated by a decreasing red bar in the Prescience meter space. During the withdrawal period, you cannot consume any spice to rebuild your meter, so withdrawal is principally a cooldown on the Prescience state. But also, during withdrawal, you will see visual artifacts and hallucinations on screen, sometimes subtle, and sometimes anything but. Withdrawal lasts anywhere from 1.5 to 3.5 minutes, and I couldn't determine exactly what affects its duration. It might be random, or it might just be set by the devs to match the specific hallucination sequence that plays, so you have enough time to appreciate the visuals. But regardless, withdrawal lasts for about 2 minutes and 45 seconds on average after Prescience ends. The visual effects should end when the withdrawal meter fully depletes, but as of this video they tend to bug and persist indefinitely. Assuming this happens, you can remove the visual artifacts by logging out and then logging back into your server. When you first enter withdrawal, your tolerance level will increase by 1 as indicated by the number in the diamond at the bottom of the arc meter shown in your status overlay. The tolerance value ranges from 0 to 10. You cannot go higher than 10, so there is a limit to how bad things can get. The amount of spice awarded by a given food and the amount of spice you gain per second standing in a spice field both decrease by a fixed amount with each tolerance level. So the change from level to level in terms of how much more spice you need to consume to fill the Prescience meter is not linear, but hyperbolic. That means the difference between the first few levels is pretty small, but as you get to the higher tolerance levels, each additional level feels significantly worse. At the maximum tolerance of 10, you need to consume about 6 times as much spice to get the same meter increase as you do at tolerance level 0. The only way to decrease your tolerance is to wait. Tolerance decreases automatically over time, but only while you are logged into the game, and the wait is long, about 4 hours per tolerance level. Specifically, tolerance level 1 seems to take about 3 hours to clear, and each higher level takes 11 minutes longer to clear than the prior one. And so the question becomes, how much should you moderate your spice use? Should you wait after every activation to get back to tolerance 0 before you consume spice again? Or should you commit to addiction and consume massive amounts of spice to activate Prescient as often as possible? In my opinion, there is a correct answer to this question, and it's that you should be a degenerate spice junkie. Yes, you will be crafting a lot more spice beer and using a lot more spice sand relative to someone committed to staying at low tolerance, but in absolute terms, you need something like 12 beers at tolerance 10 to fill a full Prescience meter. That's 39 spice sand, 24 fiber, and 120 water to craft 1 activation of Prescience. And in the grand scheme of things, 39 spice sand is nothing. That's a single clump made in a spice field with an entry-level static compactor. Literally a few extra seconds while you're out gathering spice sand translates into multiple 5-minute long Prescience activations. Whereas, if you want to stay at tolerance 0, you literally have to wait multiple hours between each activation of the Prescient state. You're just never using it in that case, and you're missing out on a ton of opportunities to steamroll and save time, and just being a total square. So absolutely, just consume spice as often as possible and activate Prescience as often as possible and live life at tolerance level 10. There's just one more thing I want to mention. You probably know that in the aluminum tier, there's a spice mask that you can fabricate. The description says that it prevents the wearer from inhaling airborne spice particles to avoid adverse addictive effects. If you wear one of these while walking in a spice field, it does in fact prevent your spice meter from building. However, I have not observed any adverse effects from consuming spice or staying at full meter for long stretches, so I don't know of any practical reason why you would want to wear a spice mask. I assume it exists for style or RP reasons. So go get spice drunk and be merry.